Liftoff in 3, 2, 1.
Hey there, welcome to the Body Mind Index. I'm Jerry Pujols, your host, and I'm thrilled to present this special episode featuring an inspiring journey of transformation. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from our incredible guest speaker, Shanti Cat. Shanti's story is a testament to the power of finding balance, happiness, and pure joy amidst a life once filled with overwhelming challenges. In this episode, Shanti will share her personal journey, how she transitioned from a state of being overwhelmed to a life of equilibrium and profound contentment. Her story serves as an inspiration for anyone seeking a more harmonious and fulfilling existence. Throughout her experiences, Shanti's discovered the keys to unlocking inner peace, and she will be offering invaluable insights and practical tips to help you find your own path to balance and happiness. So, get ready to be inspired as we listen to Shanti's story of transformation and discover the profound wisdom she has to share. If you resonate with Shanti's journey and find her insights valuable, be sure to subscribe to our channel, Body Mind Index, for more empowering content. Let's continue our pursuit and balance of happiness and joy together. Kathy Stewart.
Jerry.
Yeah.
I'm so excited that you made it to the breath work practice. You know, I knew there was hesitancy and but I also knew that the experience would just be the teacher, and you know, that you walk away with like, wow, what just happened?
Yeah.
So I'm super curious how you feel from that experience and how it was days after.
All right, so you're
taking
running.
it was an hour class. Yeah.
I'm laughing in my head because all of a sudden you're running the interview. I love it. Did not see that coming.
We can rewind it.
Oh, no, you're fine. It's supposed to be, I told you, but I didn't see it. Wow. Okay, let's go there first. Oh man, this is going to be a lot more fun than I thought. Okay. Yeah, because again, we don't know what we don't have a clue of.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just put a post on Facebook. I don't know if you saw it.
I did. It was incredible.
No, my pleasure. I left your place seeing things one way, and I told you I'm gonna do this and that, and I have this needs to get out to everybody. Sort of, that was my energy, right? We got to tell as many people as we can. But then as the energy that I got from that started to mellow, then I thought, Jerry, take it easy. Just take it easy. You're gonna my voice started to say, you're gonna freak Cat out, because I can almost feel that you were like a deer in the headlights. Like, this guy is just a light bulb on a string, not suspended by anything, just bouncing all over the place. And I think you can see that was the energy of the breath work that I just couldn't. Yeah. It was insane.
It happens to many. That the inspiration and the creativity it sparks. I mean, that's one tiny little part of what comes from breath work. Yeah.
It didn't go away. Yeah. It just mellowed.
Nice.
And then it gave me, instead of right there being the way that I normally am, my wife will tell you the first thing I do is just start on something right immediately. Then as it mellowed, I just picked up that cadence and just rolled with it. And then it was 2-3 days later that I felt I wanted to give some thought as to what I would put on Facebook about that experience, and I wanted to sit with it because I knew more would come of it. And me talking to my son and my daughter-in-law Sierra about it with Susan, we had a great meeting and I shared the experience, and the kids are so interested in doing it.
Nice.
Yeah. Even Sierra threw a word at me that I'm not very familiar with. What was the word? The word was, gosh, what is the practice that, because the yoga that I used to practice was Hatha yoga.
Hatha yoga is more the asana, the postures.
Yes,
combined with some breathing, definitely.
Yeah.
This is pranayama, breath work.
Pranayama. She said the word pranayama. And
it's a limb of yoga, one of the limbs of yoga.
Got it.
In the 8-path limb of yoga.
Got it. So we can go deep if we want to. It
It's
sounds
just
like
one tiny part of yoga.
that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, thank you. And so I was already excited to see that Sierra my daughter-in-law was connected with it, and she's super excited about it. She's ready to give birth any second. She just ran to the hospital last night. Susan went to her house.
Wow, exciting.
Everything's in motion. We thought she was delivering last night, and then they sent her
goodness.
back home for the second time. So we're really in the
Yeah.
in the middle of that.
Yeah.
Talk about adrenaline and excitement,
Yeah.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
But as I was talking to the kids and processing the experience and wanting them to be a part of it, then I already called my sister in Miami, she's in mid-state Florida. She very much has been practicing some form of yoga her entire life, pretty much. Since,
Beautiful.
you know, if I was 12 years old when my mom went to an ashram, to live at an ashram, my sister was 2 years younger, she was 10, and she's been practicing ever since, and she's
Great
super
age to
connected.
get into it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's super connected, and I wanted her. She's done breath work before. It sounded like from the conversation, but I told her, you can get on Zoom, you can do it with me, we can experience it together, and
Very
that's
fun.
what I was excited about.
Yeah.
So now, you know, I've reached out to a friend of mine, Guy Gal, who I told you that he owns a super large company, and he wants to bring. He's really interested in bringing wellness into the culture because he feels that it's needed.
Yeah.
So-
For longevity, for stress release, you know, balancing out all that action, having tools for your physiology. So
Yeah, and he connects with it. He's
Yeah,
super
wonderful.
cerebral, and he gets it.
Mhm.
So I'm going to get to the answer to your question because I think I've been dancing around it. I felt a lot of things that I haven't connected with in that, and I always wonder if it's because I'm finally open to it. So you have felt accurately, you have felt the sort of resistance, because every time I run into you, it's like a magnet. I want to talk to you about spirituality, or I want to talk to you about well-being, because that's who I see in you. Every time I see you, based on what I see on social media about you, I understand that you would get me. And not the Jerry that's the salesperson Jerry that is the successful real estate broker or the whatever label it is that I have been tagged with. I always just, at times we run into each other at Whole Foods or at Pete's Coffee or somewhere like that, and I just immediately just go to you and just want to like do a download and tell you,
Yeah.
hey, this is what's going on in my life and blah, 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 and I just download on you. And you just very patiently usually just receive that. And usually I think you say, well, come do one of the things, or just come over, you know, and just, and then I'm never.
Try the practice.
Try it. Yeah, that's always your
Yeah.
go-to is always, why don't you just do that? Which is exactly what I'm looking for.
Right, yeah.
But at the time, it's not what I'm willing to do.
Sure.
I know it's it's what I should do. I just don't.
Not the right time.
Not that for the weirdest reason.
Yeah.
And there are so many people around me that I can see that this would just benefit them in such a way.
Yeah.
And I have to practice. What I think I need to learn from you is that just drop the seed, you know, and just say, consider this, or this is what I'm doing, consider this. And that's all you can do, because give advice or take somebody through here's what I did, or people just don't react to that.
Right.
People, I think, need their own path, and you get there when you get there.
Yeah. Well, I think it starts with the fact that you know, when we see something in somebody else or in a situation and there's an attraction, then that means like there's an interest, there's a desire to move towards that, whatever that may be. But it starts there, because it starts with an awareness and a yearning. So I call it being on a path, you know, and it's like a path of evolution, whether it's in your emotional body, your physical body, your spiritual body. So, and it is an individual journey, and it is all about timing. And so, yeah, I think it starts with that seed of attraction. And so that's been, you know, in motion, and then all these changes come along, and it's timing of when it's open, and the teacher arrives as well. So
that's right. I really love that, because
Mm-hmm.
the one thing that I metaphorically use even on this project of mine with this channel is the life as a metaphor for, or a path as a metaphor for life. I like hiking. I like being on a path. But what excites me the most about a path is, and the reason I can stay on a path for a long period of time, even by myself, is because I'm always curious of what's around the bend or what's over the pass.
Yeah.
And I find that life is just like that. It's always a curiosity of what's around the bend.
And it's a seeker. It's like you have that seeking, energy. Some people aren't seekers, They want to keep things the same. They feel safer there.
Yeah.
But if
I don't want to be safe. I don't want to be safe at all. I want to be the opposite of safe. I want to experience. I really want to. I yearn to experience. I yearn to get out, and I yearn. I'm preparing for that Mount Whitney on June 9th.
Yeah.
And I just realized 2 days ago that there's quite a bit of snow still left there, and the trails are really, really treacherous. And now I want to go even more.
Yeah.
But now I know I have to prepare even more. And
so
now
you're okay with the fear,
I read that book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways, by Susan Jeffers a bunch of years ago. I just recently learned she passed. I wanted to have her on the podcast because she changed my life.
Oh wow.
And she passed away, I think, in 2012. And that was really sad to see. But it was that I really connected with, if there's fear, that's the path.
Yeah.
The fear is usually the light.
Yeah.
So that's always been a thing. Even if I crash and burn, it's been because that's been the crashing and burning is to me the lesson.
Yeah.
And it's just
wisdom in it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I, you talk about the word attraction and the things that attract us. That makes me think of, my tight nucleus and my family and what I fight for. And I know you and I have had different journeys. You have a young daughter that just got married.
Just got married. Yeah.
That's exciting, right?
28.
Right. So that comes with everything that parenting comes with, and that comes with the most joyful moments along with the most painful moments.
Yeah. It's like a bittersweet, right?
It has it all there.
Yeah.
And for me, part of what I'm trying to work on is I really got to turn this interview around to make it about you. But for me, is this desperate need to get those that are around me to kind of connect with what I'm doing, because I know it's so good for them.
Yeah, but can I speak to that?
I want you to.
There's this part, it's almost like a metaphor of like gaining knowledge, that people read, go to another seminar, another workshop, another, but the practice, like actually integrating that information and living it, gets lost because there's so much on a track of obtaining more. And I think also because you are a caregiver, you care, you have love for your family and other people, you're a giver, that we can sometimes but it also can be a distraction. We can sometimes distract from our own experience and go to helping others, and all this energy gets lost. In a sense, it gets transferred. I remember when I was first learning how to teach yoga, I would go, because I was already a teacher of aerobics and group classes and all that, and I was so intimidated to teach yoga, because it was like, how do you teach this 5,000-year-old science, And I would learn things, but I would be learning them in order to teach them. And so there was this bypass, and the stress level went up. And I finally had an aha where it's like, teach what you know, which took a lot of pressure off. And it was more all about live it. You be it and live it, and put more energy there. And when I did that, then it became just this easy, authentic way of teaching, because I was just teaching what I knew, and it was in me. I didn't have to, get a script. I didn't have to figure out a routine because I practice. I live it all the time. I was just demonstrating that. So I encourage that with this. Here's this new exciting phase of development, and it's in breath work, to just dive in for you. Because there's a lot of energy that can go to, immediately telling everybody, I noticed that just in asking the question, what was the experience like for you? Like, I'd love to hear more, and I'd like to come back to that.
You still haven't answered that.
No, and it went to all of the people you're reaching and wanting to have them, get in, and it's like, wow, how about come back to you?
Yeah.
So that would be my encouragement, is actually try not to do that, and you live it, breathe it, be it, because that magnitude, like your auric space, your magnetism is just going to penetrate because you're living it, doing it. Sure, you can talk to people about your experience, but often it's like finding those that are attracted to that, and they come to you and want to know the information. It's even more amplified of making a difference. So yeah, I really encourage, actually in a sense, give to you. Yeah. Be in the experience, maybe even just be quiet with it, because how much did you really, really feel it? How much was your mind going, how can I tell everybody about this so that they can feel it too, because you're such a giver.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd love to come back to the question.
I'm ready to now focus on that one thing, because my mind does wander.
Yeah, because I loved when you did the breathwork session, we were in a group session, I noticed your ability. Breathwork is an advanced practice of yoga, and it's generally not something you just jump into. You build into it very, very slowly, and often we don't breathe correctly, and it can do so much to your body that it can get you dizzy and out of sorts. I notice, because I watch the students and I can see the patterns and I can see where the breath is, and you were mastered at it already, almost as if you had done it before. There was a comfort level, and you did a lot of challenging. We did Kundalini yoga, we did traditional pranayamas, and then we did some more way out there with breath holds and so forth. And so I noticed that your ability was there greatly. And then when I asked you after class, how did it feel? It was
I couldn't stop talking.
You were like,
I was dropping the F-bomb a lot.
Was that amazing?
Yeah. It was
so the amazing. I'd like to know more. What was amazing? Like, I'm super curious. We didn't get to talk too much on how is it amazing.
Yeah, because my brain was running into how can we capitalize on that and make a business around it.
Yeah. So how is it amazing for you? Yeah.
I think I briefly mentioned that recently I tried TM, Transcendental Meditation, and I found that it was deeper than probably anything I'd ever done before, as far as finding a quiet space. When they talk about diving into the depth of the ocean, into your mind, I think I found that. And it was very quiet in there, which I think was great. But then there was also another what I found to be a dark side to that, which it was almost too deep and too quiet, if there's such a thing. It was almost for me, because there's so much that I attached to that. But in your class, and probably has everything to do with oxygen and breath, and I don't know if I've told you that I suffer from panic and anxiety attacks.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
okay.
I have for.
Okay.
It started when I was about 18 years old. I remember the very first one. It was Upper East Side of Manhattan. I was living by myself, and I looked up at the buildings, and they all started spinning.
Oh wow!
To the point where I literally just about fell to the floor because I was so dizzy. I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
I just thought for sure I was going to die at that point, that the lights were turning off. Something was shutting down. I didn't know what it was. Yeah. And that pain continued, that thing continued on and off for years to come. Even when I married Susan at 21, they kind of dissipated. I think there was so much joy around that and all that. I think they dissipated. But then when the reality of, here now you're you married somebody with 2 babies and you're starting a family, and at 21, by 23 you have 3 kids, by 25 you have 4, and the weight of all that started a path of anxiety that I never understood till by chance, after I've had the MRIs, the CAT scans, the this, the that, all these things, because they thought maybe it was brain tumors, maybe, I mean, the big words were thrown around.
Wow, okay.
Just to find out, and many trips to the emergency room with, you know, heart palpitation. I mean, it just went on for a long time. I started a business when I was 23 with $300. I started a produce company and had a warehouse in San Francisco. Life was moving so fast that I was so dysregulated. Until I ran into a doctor that happened to have a degree in psychology, and he just asked me a few questions about my life, and he said, "Oh, you don't have any of that stuff. You're just suffering from panic attacks." And at that point, we're going back to like 89 or 91 or something like that. We're like, at that point, people didn't talk about panic attacks, and if you had them, you didn't admit you had them.
Right. Yeah.
So then after that, I suffered from them for so many years after that, till I was close to 30, till Susan sort of kind of forced the hand. She says, "You're debilitated. There are times that you can't even get out of the house. You're so afraid to walk out of the house. You got to see somebody." And luckily, there was a psychiatrist in Santa Elena. I had a phobia against medication, so I didn't want to take medication. But he finally got me to take one pill that I've been taking for, close to 30 years now. 1 pill a day.
And it regulated.
And I have no side effects from that pill.
That's incredible.
So that was life-changing for me.
Very much life-changing.
But because of that, I have done some forms of informal breath work. You know, they tell you to breathe from your abdomen and this and that. But I have also, again, because of my mom and her background and her journey, I have experienced a lot of yoga. And then I've also known that it's the right thing for me. And that it helps center me. So from that bit of digression, I found that sitting in that with oxygen in your space with your words, I found that I connected with a lot of things, and I found places that I didn't understand or know. I didn't know they were there. And I mentioned to you after the class how I found safety in knowing that there's a lot of oxygen within us already. So even when we would do an exhale and a hold, and you would say, you know, you can go ahead and hold that exhale. Once you're fully empty, you can hold that exhale, even though I'm doing other exercises and moving on for other people in the class. You can hold it and stay there if you want, because your body has a lot of oxygen. You're not deprived. It's just your mind reacting to that. And I connected with that to such a degree that it was like, I don't know how long I held that exhale. Once my lungs were as empty as I can get them, I held that for a lot longer than I ever thought was possible. And then it reminded me a little bit of Wim Hof, from people like that who have.
That is breath holds. He does breath holds.
He does insane breath holds.
But it brings you into these states of being, like non-ordinary states of being, and so much is going on scientifically during.
And there is so much.
Did it connect in somehow with the panic attacks?
Absolutely.
In what way?
Absolutely.
Like you were, because in a sense, some people, like that's one part of breath work is Kumbhaka, breath retention. And in that particular one where you're exhaling and there's no breath, that's the most panic inducing, I think. It is, that's because it's like you're coming up towards like the feelings of death. You're not breathing.
But that's why I say it was your words that did it. So there's certain things that I think I'm old enough to know that certain things is the practice, but certain things are the teacher, and how the teacher delivers and how the student connects to the teacher, I think is so magical. You know, I dropped out of school in the 10th grade.
Yeah, you have to have that right combination. You have to find your teachers.
I dropped out of school in the 10th grade because the teachers just bored me to pieces. And I couldn't afford to go back to school because I had to pay rent when I was in 10th grade. So, but I could have gone back to school if I had the right teacher. You know, I never really found the right teacher.
The teacher makes a difference.
In my life, teachers have made the difference. And my teachers are really my mentors. But that's why I really complimented you so much at the end of that class, because your delivery really connected with me. And it helped me to reach, and I hope anybody out there that finds himself in a place of growth, that if they listen to this and they're in a place that they can just give something like this an opportunity, whether you're the teacher or there's another teacher that they connect with, that's their own personal thing, but try breath work. I mean, try it. And if that teacher you don't connect with, then try another teacher.
Right.
You know, but for me, at that moment in time in my life, it was again, and the other things that if I can find tangible things to say about the experience, besides the energy that I felt afterwards when I was in it, the safety, calm, and peace of something that most of the time would have made me feel nervous and anxious was not there. And that allowed me to see that I have so many more gears available within me to explore. That I think it was mind opening, and that's kind of the most tangible thing I can come up with. I mean, I think I told you at one point I can see the, you know, people talk about out of body experiences and seeing your body from an out of body experience. I'm not very much into that because I don't understand it.
But you were having some
form
of experience of watching yourself.
Oh, I can watch myself. I
like
can
the witness.
Absolutely. I can
That's
see
that's a consciousness.
Yeah, I
so
can see my silhouette.
Witness consciousness.
Yeah, and I don't know what that means.
That means like the ability to be outside of your body, even though, you know, in your consciousness of awareness that you aren't your body, that you're actually watching yourself. You're watching your body. You're a witness to the experience. Often we're in our heads so much that we're not in the experience and we're not aware. So it's another state of consciousness that the breath brings you to.
So that's something
so
that I definitely need. I know you have a class tonight, so I plan on being there. As long as Sierra doesn't have a baby or Susan doesn't need my help. Because it's all hands on deck. But I'm looking forward to it because that is I think I have a super loud mind.
Yeah, well, all of this, so like in the it's one form of yoga is the 8-path limb of yoga, Ashtanga. And there's these limbs of yoga. The niyamas and the yamas have more to do with like social and personal codes. And then you get into these other parts of this 8-path limb, which are more practical, like asana. Hatha yoga, doing postures, is one limb of yoga. Another limb of yoga is withdrawing from your senses, pratyahara. Another limb of yoga is like concentrating your mind. So before you drop into meditation, you often concentrate on something and your brain waves start to change. You know, if you do some body asanas, your brain waves start to change. Well, when you do pranayama, which is another limb of yoga, your brain waves really change. And they bring you into a meditative state. So it's really hard to go, you know, from go to sit down and meditate. Your mind's racing. And our mind is always stimulated. There's so much stimulation going on. So the breath work especially stills the mind. You know, we often, I'm going to still my mind. Well, if you do practices, then you're there. And if you're feeling out of sorts, it's hard to think your way into a better feeling. But you can do breath work and get there. So there's so many benefits to breath work for just mental health, for physical health, for your organs, your everything from asthma to getting your body more alkaline to heart health. So and you did a lot. This was a full-on class of pranayama, which was Kundalini yoga, which that in itself is
Kundalini,
flowing.
That's what Sierra said, Kundalini.
Kundalini yoga. Kundalini yoga is another form of yoga. And it works more on your energetic body. It works on your prana, like big time. Your prana is your life force. It works on your organs. It works on your mental. And it combines breath with movement. So that's another form of yoga.
Well, I really connected with that too, because when you had us do the bends and the exhales, and you were talking about how that's impacting the organs within you, you know, I was really, really sensing that.
Oh yeah, we did that one where you inhale, hold your breath, and then pump your belly. So it's like Ayurvedic medicine where you're massaging your organs. Yes, so it's amazing. I mean, for your, you know, physical health, affecting the organs is like, definitely. And the breath holds are a whole nother part of breath work. You know, that's And in like old yoga texts, they talk about Nishisha Rachaka. Took me forever to get that wording down because I can't pronounce very well. Nishisha Rachaka. Going beyond your comfort zone, which you did in a breath hold.
Yeah.
Going beyond your comfort zone is actually, that particular part of the breath work you did was magical. It's called intermittent hypoxia. Like the science now is catching up with this.
Yeah, and that's one thing that interests me, because the science has always interested me. I'm not a researcher by nature, but I am drawn to people who are, and people who are researchers and do that work. I ride on those coattails, and I really connect with that. So I love it.
I love it. So you did that, and then you did some traditional pranayamas, and then when you're done, you feel like, oh, I just want to go meditate.
That's great.
Yeah.
It was great. Yeah.
So did you feel like, so then when you were talking about the panic attacks and the breath holds, in a sense, it sounds like it brought you to that realm again, but then the experience of like, I got it, like I'm okay here.
Yeah.
I'm at peace, actually.
Yeah.
That's a big part of the experience too.
It was huge.
Yeah.
It was huge.
That's beautiful. Yeah, so Wednesday, which is, that's tonight.
Today.
So I also teach a gentle type yoga with pranayama. So if you're able to come tonight or another Wednesday, it's very gentle postures. And you're doing breath work, gentle breath work while you're doing postures. So you leave feeling like you went on this wonderful vacation, and your nervous system gets just so calm. And
I find that the timing can be better, because I am training for Mount Whitney, and it's a 1 day, so it's a 15-hour hike.
Yeah.
If I do it at a reasonable pace, it might be more like 18 for me, because I'm still not in the shape that I need to be doing Mount Whitney.
Yeah, this will, like,
but this
the
is
breath
the timing.
holds.
The timing is
kind of like the Wim Hof. I mean, this is very similar to Wim Hof, the Soma breath.
Yeah.
But you are in hypoxic state, which is lack of oxygen.
Yeah.
So you put a positive stress on the body, and so this is perfect for your endurance training.
I'm getting stewarded to pieces, because Danielle helps me as a running coaching. She's helping me with running, because I'm really enjoying the spaces that I'm getting into with running. And so Danielle Stewart has gotten me into that. Her husband, John Stewart, who's a trainer, a physical therapist, and many more things that have to do with the physical. I reached out to him yesterday, just in his schedule is always booked solid, and I said, John, I just realized that I'm not pushing myself hard enough on my cardios. Can I get some sessions before June 9th? And he just crammed in. So today at 1:30 I'm going to be there getting destroyed for an hour, because I have to break through a certain threshold to feel strong enough and brave enough to conquer that beast of a mountain, because I did Whitney a long time ago, but I did it through the John Muir Trail, so I was already at high elevation.
I see.
So I'd already had like 17 days to acclimate to elevation. So I was in really good shape by the time I got to the backside of Whitney, and only went up a couple thousand feet. Well, this time I'm going up 60-something hundred feet, all in one day, up and down, which is a marathon, is 26 miles. So I almost, I could have, if I wouldn't have seen some of the things that I seen and talked to some of the people I talked to, I think I could have really undermined it. So there's a lot more work that I need to do in the next 3 weeks to really be ready for that. So the timing of being around you is
well, like magical. I'd love for you to master the Soma breath. So Saturday is full on Soma breath. Well, just to learn the technique and then do it every day.
You're going to see me at a lot of classes. Because,
and then the daily practice.
Well, I didn't even understand that till you just said it. So I'll want to know more about doing something daily, because there's a lot that I need to do. It's
amazing, because the breath holds, they increase your red blood cells, and then you're getting the carbon dioxide that flushes back in, and then all the oxygen from your lungs goes into all your tissues, which gives you energy. So you can work on it on such a deeper level with the breath work. So I'm excited.
Can we turn this interview the other way now?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Because I just went to your podcast. Thank you, but I've never been a guest at a podcast, so this felt like the first time. I love it. I have been guest speaker at many things, but never at a podcast. But those things always having to do with real estate. So I wanted to just, the curiosity is killing me.
Go for it.
Okay. So you must, I know how long you've been in real estate, so it's even longer than me.
1988, before lockboxes and
so
before fax machines.
So I got married in 88. That's
Okay.
35 years ago.
Okay.
I know exactly because we just celebrated 35 years ago.
Yeah.
I've been in real estate 10 years
Okay.
less than you.
Okay.
And
I'm retired now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I came in, I didn't quite know that, but I assumed that
Yeah.
because you're really connected with this. And when I came into the real estate business, you were already a successful agent. That most of us that knew anything about anything in this area of Napa Valley, we knew you were a successful person. And I always tell you that people always say, she's smart. If you're going to do a transaction with her, she's smart. She knows how to carry herself. And I think you can also, to me, you were a little intimidating. Like, oh God, if I do a transaction with her, she's going to uncover everything I don't know. So, but I don't think we ever did a transaction together, which is bizarre.
Isn't it?
For the volume of business we've both done, that we didn't cross paths.
Yeah.
I think at some point I may have felt like maybe you didn't like me or you didn't want to work with me. Knowing what I know now, not about you, but about me, I know that those things are made up in my own insecurities and in my own head, because a lot of times I just assumed
just
that
didn't line up.
in my mind, I just assumed that didn't happen because she must have not wanted it to.
No.
Because I had so many listings that she had to sell one of them.
Yeah.
So that was the ego and all these other things that I'm tied into. So, but I always enjoyed when you spoke or you were at MLS and you would say something about a property or what. Anytime I had any exchange with you, I thought that people are right. She is smart, and she is delightful and all these things. What made me more curious is then when social media became a thing. And that's when I started to kind of see, sometime into that, I started to see that your trajectory started to shift. And because of my experience in the world of spiritual, the Cuban comes out, and I would say I'm Cuban, but I'm really Puerto Rican. But I always think it sounds hipper to say that you're Cuban than Puerto Rican. So I want to apologize to my Puerto Rican family for that bullshit that I make up in my own head. And I'm very proud to be Puerto Rican, and it has the most beautiful culture. What was it? Maybe tell me a little bit about. Start at the beginning. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? Maybe start with that, and why real estate?
Oh gosh, well, I grew up in Santa Monica, and we lived a block from the beach when my dad said we're moving to Carson City, Nevada, in the middle of high school, and half the family went one way, half the other.
It was the same. It was living the same life in very similar places, right?
Like sagebrush and gambling, and now I'd say maybe 20 years behind the time. So I went into a pretty dark place moving. It was rough. And eventually I moved. I did 1 year college. But back then, I got into fitness and became a fitness teacher at the age of 17 because I was working out at a gym, a tiny little woman's gym with a tiny aerobic program, but I was always doing the aerobics, and the teacher didn't show up one day and said, "Can you teach, please?" And I was so afraid, but I taught, and then I was hooked. So I became a teacher of group classes when I was 17. So that got the spark going. And then I moved to San Diego. I was planning to go to college, waiting for residency, and I worked at a gym, and I was teaching aerobics on trampolines. And so I got my goal. I wanted to be a physical therapist or maybe a veterinarian, but really more physical therapist. For some reason, that was, I knew that I wanted that. I don't even know why. But I didn't have the support to go to college. So I got it more into the fitness industry. And when I moved to Napa, because I met somebody who was from Napa and I fell in love and moved here, I started working at La Concha, the only gym in town. And I was the aerobic director, and then became like an assistant director of the whole club. And it was a great experience. I was putting on a lot of the social events and things like that. And so I did that.
Was a big deal with all the racquetball
and
all that.
I did the 6 a.m. classes. Wow. We had like 30, 35 people. I would do like fun, like Halloween, everybody would dress up. And I put on a couple of really amazing, like special aerobic programs. I had a live band came in that was all African drums, and and aerobics was exploding. So it was really, really fun. But I ended up getting fired because I called out somebody for sexual harassment. It was not so good behind the scenes, and I was managing, so I addressed it and I got fired. Wow. But I was still allowed to teach aerobics, which was my love, but I could no longer be management and all that because I was ratting out what was going on.
So you were an independent contractor then, or
so then I was independent, and then I'm like, what am I going to do? What's my career? And I'll never forget this. My dad, when he moved to Nevada, he was an optometrist in Santa Monica, but he retired, and when he went to Nevada, he became a realtor. And so I remember talking to him like, I don't know what to do, and he's like, here, read these books. So he gave me some real estate books to read. And I was charged. I don't know why. I mean, I always loved to play Monopoly as a kid, constantly. Yeah. But I just remember the excitement that in reading them, there was a charge. And so I just followed that charge and went into schooling. Back then, was it Anthony's?
It was Anthony's, yeah.
And basically, I was still teaching aerobics, but started in real estate in '88. There was no lock boxes. We'd have to go get all the keys and return them. No MLS, so we had the blue book every week. I still have one
gatekeepers.
Somewhere. When fax came, it was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, what a time saver, But everything sped up. The more that we got connected with the internet and the pace went really fast.
Yeah.
But so that's where I got into real estate, but I always taught on the side. So I was, I'm Gemini as well.
Yeah, you can do too.
So I always kept going with the physical fitness and the teaching. That was always there. Just a lot more dedication to real estate because it's 24/7.
Yeah.
So always did that until the physical fitness moved into the yoga. So before that had happened, I dove into a lot of emotional healing work and was actually involved in the 12-step program at one point. And that got me onto a total emotional healing track. And then I got into meditation. I really didn't know what yoga was. I never actually heard the word back then.
Right.
Small town in Napa didn't really have it.
Yeah.
My friends weren't into it.
Yeah.
But I had started to go to Esalen and other workshops and got more involved in meditation. And then there was a teacher that came to, at this point, La Concha dwindled and Health Quest opened. A lot of La Conchans went there.
Yeah.
And I was teaching there. I started teaching, I was slowing down. Step came into play, and I'm like, I'm aerobics, not step. These little boxes don't confine me. So I went more into like body sculpt, and I started teaching stretch classes. And as I was getting into meditation, I'm like, it'd be really great to put the meditation into the stretch class. So I designed my own class, and I didn't know what to call it, not knowing that it was yoga, but I didn't know what to call it, and I called it body meditation. And it was super popular. For 2 years I taught body meditation.
Wow.
And it was stretching with meditation. And
were you still selling real estate at that point?
Yeah,
you were still
definitely all along.
Yeah.
And then a new teacher came to Health Quest, and I saw the description of this new class called yoga, and I'm like, And I took her class, Barbara Asaba, and I was like, the words were, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I'm home.
Yeah.
Like I'm home.
Yeah.
And I just was like, what is this? I want this, and I want to teach this. And so I dove into like a year of training.
Wow.
And that wasn't that long ago. That was 23 years ago. Not that long ago, really, to like have this burst open of awareness about what yoga was, and that started me on that whole path. So and I was never one, I mean, my training was in a particular type of yoga, Anusara, but I was never a follower of one person or one way. I'm just not. And I was continuously always trying all kinds of modalities of yoga and different teachers and gentle and yin, and somewhere along the line, well, in my first original training was a lot of breath work. Doug Keller, like his book, all these traditional pranayamas. So I always, when I taught yoga, brought in breath. And then I got introduced to Kundalini Yoga. I did a lot of like festivals, yoga festivals that had a lot of Kundalini Yoga and traditional yoga. They also had ecstatic dance, so got really deep into ecstatic dance, which was very big in the Bay Area. Now it's all over. Slowly actually got into chanting, which felt so religious, and I'm like, I was raised Catholic, and I'm like, nah,
it's easy to get judgmental.
Even the word God, it was like the
right.
religion killed the word God for me, but
right.
not anymore.
Right.
So chanting was a whole nother realm of yoga, so I got into that. Started with Krishna Das, who was tiny. I went to a retreat, it was like 30 people. Now you go to his kirtans and there's thousands of people.
Really?
So it was kind of on the beginning of things. So that was always going on as I sold real estate, as I was raising my daughter, as I was managing some of my own rentals.
Were you single at that point, or were you still married?
I was not married, but I was in a longer term relationship with my daughter's father.
Yeah.
And so I've been in longer term relationships and then single, a lot of dating, a lot of mixture of all kinds of things.
Sure.
But essentially feeling like, single mom. I mean, we did share custody, so it was good for her and helpful.
Yeah.
But still, managing my own house. And
Dad in Napa most of the time?
Mm-hmm. I moved to Napa in 82. Yeah, 82, 83. So from like 83, I was at La Concha. 88 is when I went into real estate. Yeah. So almost like, two lives, like both worlds.
That's hard. I mean, for me, that's really hard.
But it fed me. It was like, it's like both worlds, like the physical business aspect, but also the spiritual and emotional. And I think, I do resonate with being a Gemini because it's so much of the traits of being able to hold both worlds, and they need both worlds and curiosity. And so, all that was going on for a long time, both at the same time.
Would you agree that if most people don't lean into both worlds, then something's off balance?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. We need a balance. It's kind of like the doing and the being.
Yeah.
The good food with the junk food.
Yeah.
It's important. The spending and the saving. Everything's a balance, right? Yeah. So that went on for a long time, and I was holding a lot. Definitely. I mean, doing probably 5 worlds in one. Because I was not only selling but raising a daughter and teaching.
Yeah.
I was managing properties too.
Yeah. I knew by association. I knew that you had properties too.
Yeah, I had some property and managed other people's properties.
Oh, you did property management as well.
Yeah.
That's
a little bit. Yeah. And then I have a social world because I love my friends.
Yeah.
And I am really tight with my family. So at some point things were starting to break in my body from too much stress, and I did get chronically ill.
Did you?
I did, yeah.
What did that look like?
It was major fatigue, brain fog, feeling like having a virus all the time, that it could just be, be fine, and then boom, you've got like a virus feeling going on. Really depleted, and then trying to search for what was it, trying to put a label on it so you could fix it, right? Which so many times happens, and then there's all these new diagnoses. So fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, MS, all these Lyme disease, right?
Lupus,
all of it. But I think it's all they're finding more and more it has so much to do with your nervous system, which is why it comes back to breath. Like this breath work balances out your nervous system. So a lot of chronic diseases are tied back to your nervous system. That was absolutely it. So, I mean, I was diagnosed with Lyme, like chronic Lyme, not like from a tick, but like born with it type stuff. Really? Is another theory, I say. But I didn't want to resonate with it. It was like, I don't want to be labeled it. I didn't resonate. I came up with it. It was my stress. And it actually, I'm grateful in a sense because it got me deeper and deeper into yoga, because I would need to let go of the go of real estate. Like I would come home every afternoon, I'd have to, because I was ill, and I would meditate in Shavasana on the back, do breath work and meditate for half an hour. And it was daily. And I'd get to the mat. It got me to the mat more and more and more. And I'd get to the mat and I would be exhausted, and I'd be done with the half an hour. It's like a half an hour of meditation is equal to like a 2.5 hour nap without getting groggy.
Right.
I would be so restored, like, whoop, okay, I like recharged the battery. And really what I feel, I know intuitively, it was my nervous system just whacked out. It was on all, sympathetic. Fight or fight, flight, run, So it brought me to yoga. I mean, of course, I did all kinds of quacky things with Western and Eastern medicine to try to cure this thing. And I think it definitely did help support my system, because I'm sure my adrenals were done or this or that. But I didn't go down this road of it's Lyme disease and you got to do. I mean, I did a little bit for sure, but none of it worked, But eventually, the more I got into the yoga and the healing arts of that and changed my lifestyle, which is a whole other topic, I started to heal, and I've not had that virus feel, it's like gone.
Can we talk a little bit about in the middle of, because I still want to learn more about your trajectory and how you pivoted. I also would love to talk about what would you say to somebody that's in that place of turmoil, or just in that place of such an intense way of living in their workspace and balancing kids and I want to talk more about that, but before we get there, just something super simple. How's your nutrition? How's that been, and has that shifted over the years?
I'd say my nutrition has been pretty solidly the same for a long time.
You've always been lean, so and I don't know if it's the workout, the nutrition, or a combination of both.
And I mean, honestly, when like raising my daughter, I wasn't as aware. Mm-hmm. I was definitely not eating as healthy as I am now. I mean, it wasn't a big, it's just a shift of like cleaner. Like I would, just cleaner food. Yeah. Back then it would be a little more processy food, whether it was like making chicken and dumplings. Well, the dumplings is like,
Saltville.
Or having pizzas and, all that's really cleaned up. I mean, so I was a healthy eater, but it got really clean. And so the clean, where it went to is really real clean food. I mean, primarily what I eat is a lot of vegetables, fruit, and really clean meat. Yeah. Like for me, I need the whole foods. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it got really, really clean. Part of that is also my daughter got into a holistic personal chef program.
Oh my God.
And learned all about so much. So that really helped change me. Everything from fermenting food to just super clean eating. She inspired a lot. She's been a big inspiration.
I'm a big
in
fan of
so many ways for me.
Great.
So that really inspired.
Is she using it?
Oh yeah, she's such a clean eater. Yeah. Really? And it's shifted. She was vegan, and it's like no, it was not good for her health.
Interesting. I've seen
certain things. Vegetarian ended up not being good for her health. Her whole hormones went a little wacky, and especially for a young girl with
Yeah, developing.
So yeah, she's on a she's on a very good diet for all of that now. Kind of actually preparing her body for babies.
Oh my God.
I know.
I see that in Sierra too. Sierra seems to be somebody that needs, seems to do better when she's got some kind of an animal protein.
Yeah.
It's funny. I struggle with that topic because of all
I
this.
think it's good to go through cleansing periods, though. I think cleanse,
resets,
is really good reset. Yeah, I think it's excellent. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I want to talk to your daughter about food. I love that topic. That's so cool. She's out of state, or she's still in California?
They just moved to Hudson Valley back in New York State. Hudson Valley. They just moved. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
But they're all around all this, a lot of organic farming.
Yeah, it's supposed to be super cool up there.
It's very conscious out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So your question was more. So you talked about the healthy eating part.
Well, yeah, I'm just curious. I was just curious about what your nutrition looked like, and I have to assume that
it's a huge piece.
That you don't need a lot of processed foods, and that you don't need, an ungodly amount of salt and sugar and things like that. I would imagine that.
I mean, my sugar is more like a cacao drink with dates or bananas. That gets my. But I don't need much. A little bit, and I'm full and satisfied. But,
you're like Susan. You guys don't have an addiction to food itself. You guys can eat when you can be satiated easily. For me, if you tell me cacao and dates, I can make a 2,000 calories smoothie out of that and drink 2 of them. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not much.
I understand.
It's crazy.
I understand.
My favorite thing in the world to eat is, I brought back dates from, I brought back cacao, like raw cacao beans from Belize.
Nice.
And shoving those things in a pitted date, and you eat that, and it's magic, man. It's sour and bitter and sweet all at the same time. And then you make a shake out of that. It's a game changer, and throw some almond butter. There's so many calories in it. People can be fat vegan. I mean, you can be really.
Yeah, well, a lot of vegans eat a lot of processed food too.
100% because Oreo cookies are vegan.
No.
And I love the labels. You go into the word plant-based, and they're like, "Oh, this is plant-based. I'm gonna buy it." But if you see the process and the ingredients, you're like, you're killing yourself.
Real healthy food is like an adjective that has to be.
I think the more whole and the less processing, the better. Sometimes
processing is making us an ill country.
Absolutely, it's the processing.
It's awful.
Going back to your journey, I'm just curious because I think of people that I want to reach. I want to reach people that have traveled, not necessarily people that have done real estate. That's not as important to me as just people who live busy and somewhat dysregulated lives like you and I have lived in the past, assuming that you would say that your life, at some point in your life, you have been dysregulated.
Oh, complete. That's why I got ill. Which, I think that's why a lot of people are getting ill with these chronic diseases where they go to doctors and the doctors say everything's fine with you. Because, technically everything is working, but I believe more and more it's the nervous system that's not working, and it manifests in all of these modalities, these chronic disease things that they're labeling because they don't know what else to label. They don't know what else to do, but let's label it this: chronic fatigue and this and that. But we're a society. It's like every time I do travel, and you've mentioned this too, you come back and you can feel the buzz, And I was just the epitome of it. I was like doing 5 people's jobs within one,
Yeah.
So my body went into, a chronic illness, like an overload, like a nervous system disorder in a sense, you would call it, maybe even call it nervous breakdown, Back then they'd call it that, but you'd be, whacked.
Oh, you'd be state hospital.
But our nervous system is delicate, and we're always taxing it. And how often are we really, we go on vacation and we come back exhausted. You know what I mean? It's a lot of doing, and then now we're stimulated so much. So I believe it's our nervous system that's going on, and if we aren't balancing it, and there's so many tools now to balance it. So, yeah, that's.
What would you say to somebody that finds themselves in that spot? I mean, I'm just curious as to if I came to you and I said, listen, I'm a single parent. I have 3 kids at home. My significant other gets the kids half the time. I have them half the time, and I'm running a small company or a large company, or I'm just or I just have a job that takes me away, and then I get home and I have to deal with kids and all that. I'm just curious as to what you would say to somebody like that, mother or father or anybody that finds himself in overwhelm. What would you say to somebody like that? I'm really curious.
I would say several different things. One, from personal experience, what helped me shift was I read this in a book, and it just like bullseye, right? And it was like, reduce your lifestyle demands. So it's like looking at your lifestyle, what I created, and looking at the demands. So what's putting demand on me, which keeps me going, and that's in so many categories. So one demand would be what I keep creating. Another demand is how overly social maybe I am. Another demand can be if you set up things with your kids where there's a lot of demand there versus they're contributing. Like in a sense, like that's one of the things with Amber. I taught her to participate. She had chores, we did things together, so it wasn't another demand. But it's like I looked at reducing my lifestyle demands. And that was a shift where I started to end things that were, for one, I stopped, allowed my creativity to not have action all the time. So I'd have creativity, but that didn't mean I had to have the action. Maybe write it down for later, but not starting anything new. And then what was demanding my attention all the time, and how could I reduce that so that I had space to have more self-care, to breathe, to do some yoga, to regulate. So if you're always on the go and you trying to meet these demands, so that's where the shift started. I started to let go of some of the rentals I was doing. I stopped doing the next new idea. I mean, I remember just always being creative and had this list that, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do that. And it's like, I actually just put a no on it, not forever, but a no on it. So that was huge. And then how could I get more support? Because I set this all up. We create our reality. So I set it up.
Yeah.
And then that started to shift. And when that shifted, then new ideas came in for moving in that other direction. I mean, I was so full, and it's almost like, energy feeds energy. So if you're on this energy of a certain way, then it just keeps going. So once you start to unwind it, and then you have some space, then the energy starts feeding in the other direction. Yeah. So my whole world started opening more to other possibilities of reducing those demands and creating more space. I was craving being. I was so craving. And when I would get to the mat, I was being. And it was like, hard. The hardest part is getting to it. And then once you're there, you're like, oh my God, I don't want to leave now. But we get so revved up. And this was all happening before the major, explosion of media and social. Yeah. This was happening before that. So can you imagine?
It's on steroids
add
now.
That, so add that, so, and that also tied into the traveling that started happening, which is a whole other topic later. But the traveling I did was, I wasn't traveling to go see things. I was traveling to be somewhere. And where I wanted to be was in conscious communities and this living space that was, I was being. I would go to these places where I didn't even know what day it was. Yeah. Sometimes I'd go, what month is it?
Yeah.
That kind of spaciousness in your world. Wow.
Yeah, can we talk more about that in a minute? Because
Sure.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's part of, that was if you had gears, that's your gears kind of started to, because I saw you traveling the globe.
Things started to change,
Yeah, and it was so cool. I mean, it was so cool to watch. It's like I can feel oxygen just through you. I can feel like, I'm finding myself with 20 escrows at a time. Carrying $200,000-$300,000 a year worth of overhead just to keep that machine going, and the pressure and the this and the that, and most of it always with the excuse that I do this for my family. I love providing for my family. It's still a thing. I still carry that like a badge of honor, but or now I should say providing for my household, because I don't find myself providing for my family anymore. They're all doing their own thing. But a lot of that comes with so much ego and something to prove that you're not being, you're just doing for the sake of proving something to others. But I did, every time I would see you do that, I would just think, oh, fuck, she got out. Like she escaped. Like she
got off the hamster wheel.
I always felt like she escaped. And it's funny because I would talk to other real estate agents about you, people that I knew you, and you see her doing it. And it's funny that what I would feel for them is that they were thinking what I was thinking.
Which is what? That I got out?
She's out. She's out, and here we fucking are. We're just grinding. We're just grinding. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with grinding when there's balance and it's at the right time in life. I think you have a time in life where it's your time to grind.
It is, absolutely.
It is your time to put the work in. It is time. It's time to do something massive. But I think while you're doing massive, you can be more authentic, true to yourself, and still really start by taking care of yourself. That's the one thing I never understood.
See, I always had that. I always had the
you
yoga.
Did.
It was on the side, but it was in me. But when I started to reduce the demands and I started to change it up, then my whole yoga world expanded. So it was like, it was out of balance, but it was always there. It was always an anchor. But it didn't get as much attention as I wanted. But thank God I had it,
I'd love to, I'd love to be able to be sort of somehow be of help. I'd love to, because again, I care about other people so deeply, and what I want to hear is, oh man, Jerry, who you connected me with helped me get X. That to me, it's not money anymore.
No.
It's that.
Being of service is
that's the thing.
Passion.
That's the thing now. Just some of the things that I've shifted in. A friend of mine, one of my wife's clients sent something the other day. Hey, I started sort of eating the way that you're eating, and my blood pressure dropped like a rock, and it's so much better now, and things like that. Now I should call her and say, try this, try going to Kat's place and get, because I think she'll get, she lost her husband very suddenly some years ago, and it was so traumatic, and we helped her through the process of getting her situated with her house and anything that had to do with real estate. But at the end of the day, some of that or most of that comes because that's your job and that's what you do.
Right.
But because of the relationship we've developed with her, we just love the fact that we're like family with her. And now the next level would be
to help with the trauma,
really,
and the stress,
really say, hey, do this, because I think she would listen. She's very close with Susan, so I think she would listen to Susan, and that's kind of where I see myself moving towards, because I am by nature a walking billboard, and I guess I need to stop beating myself up for it. It's just who I am.
Love yourself.
Yeah, and I struggle with that. I judge myself a lot.
Yeah,
right?
That's just the mind. That's like, that's part of that, you were experiencing the witness in the breath work. Like the more and more that you can just witness your mind and, notice it and not believe it. You know,
Yeah.
like talk to it, not believe it. You know,
Absolutely.
oh, that came up again. I wonder why that's coming up.
Absolutely.
And like it's not who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. No, I'm processing. I'm processing. And another thing, you know, I say that I'm present, and I try to be present, but you know, as I sit here with you, my mind is just racing in about 3 or 4 different directions. My first tattoo that I ever got was it was something about it's drips of water hitting the water and coming out the other side, and it's what does water do? It ripples out,
right?
And it just talks about the definition of it is really a present moment or a present being. And I had to.
Right.
My tattoos are all meaningful, and this one was really because I lost my mother-in-law, and I had to sit in those moments of pain and be present with the pain. And my therapist is the one that helped me through that.
Nice.
Coincidentally, my therapist lives across the street right here. So, and her and I are friends now because as long as 2 years pass, now you can be buds, and we're buds.
Oh,
the other day she says, "You need some therapy?" And I said, "I'll never.
I don't want to be friends.
I'll never go back to therapy with you because I just love you and we're friends, man."
That's beautiful.
And she just loved that so much.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's I'm excited to teach you more about the tools of breath work.
Yeah.
You know, and how quickly effective it is. So like if your mind is racing, it's breath work for that. If you can't get to sleep, there's a breath work for that. If you're having a panic attack, there's breath work for that. If you're feeling all stuffed up in your digestion, there's a breath work for that.
Well, I'll tell Susan about the sleep thing because Susan's been, because of the baby and everything going on, she hasn't been sleeping.
It's like the nervous system, and then the mind gets ramped up, you know. So, you know, often it's like changing the chemistry in your body, and the breath work also, I mean, it greatly affects your pituitary and pineal gland. So those are the glands that secrete hormones, right? So stress hormones get secreted, but also you can release in your body the feel good, calming hormones and chemicals. Like through your breath.
Wow.
You could do a breath work to release some serotonin and oxytocin. You know.
Wow, I love it.
Yeah, there's so many benefits. So I'm excited that you're moving into this world.
Me too.
It's my biggest passion. It has been for a long time.
I love it. It shows, and it's definitely making an impact. So I think it's amazing the way things can work without trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. I mean, you can really just let things be. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So based on that, maybe there's so much more I can talk about, but I think this might be a good ending to our time together. But I'm thinking that maybe by having what I would call an early ending or a reasonably a reasonable ending, I think that leaves space for a ton more.
Sounds great.
I love that.
That sounds great.
Thanks.
Aww.
I love it. Thank you.
Me too.
That was so cool. Thanks. Holy shit, that was good.